Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Bitcoin News Weekly Live. I'm your host, Rob Wallace, and we got a big show ahead of us today. Well, you see, the talk of the global financial world right now is gold. The yellow metal has gone parabolic, up more than 64% year to date. For 2 straight months, it has been on an absolute tear. Prices have ripped through $4,000 an ounce like butter as lines form outside gold dealers from London to Tokyo to New Delhi. People are literally standing in the streets for hours looking to buy coins, bars, anything they can get their hands on. It is a mix of fear and FOMO, along with the creeping realization that fiat currency is being debased. Gold now makes up 6% of all global investable assets, its highest share since 1986. And back in 1980, during the last true gold bubble, that number hit 22%. 2 decades later, in 2000, at peaks Pax Americana, it fell to just 1%. And now it's climbing again. What is odd is that the dollar has been relatively steady. Oil is falling, and long-term treasury yields are slipping. So this is not what you would expect during a typical inflation hedge rally. Gold does not surge like this unless something underneath the surface is radically shifting. These kinds of moves appear before monetary regime changes. Late 1979, when confidence in the dollar first cracked. 2008, when the credit system collapsed. Early 2020, when the world went into a virus-induced panic. Each time, gold was the first to see it coming. And yet Bitcoin is still asleep. If this is really the debasement trade, why is Bitcoin not moving? Because behind the scenes, this is about nations getting their ducks in a row for a new order. China is hoarding physical supply, including gold, silver, and rare earths, anything tangible that cannot be sanctioned or defaulted upon. And India, they're buying too. But they are buying gold because to them, the geopolitical risk is the United States. Over the last decade, we have seen this play out before. Gold runs first as the system quietly shifts into crisis prevention mode before the event hits. Then, when it does, and policymakers lose control and are forced to print, Bitcoin takes the lead. There have only been 4 times in history when Bitcoin was this undervalued to gold, and each one marked a generational bottom. We just hit that level again. In the summer of 2020, when gold topped out, Bitcoin then launched from 10K up to 50K. Gold is showing us that faith among sovereigns in the dollar standard is eroding. And when the next policy pivot arrives, Bitcoin will be the cleanest, hardest escape vehicle there is. Because despite one being physical and the other digital, Bitcoin still has one absolute advantage to gold: absolute scarcity. Approximately 67% of the world's gold supply has been mined since 1950. Total gold holdings have gone from 72,000 tons to 216,000 tons in just the last 75 years. And in the end of the day, there will only ever be 21 million Bitcoin. So gold is telling us that the storm is coming, and Bitcoin is still whispering, but soon it will not be whispering anymore. And by then, you will be upset if you didn't take advantage of this opportunity. Yes, thank you so much, everybody, for being a part of this show. Today, I am very grateful to be joined by Jonathan. Jonathan is a product manager over at BitKey, one of the best hardware wallets out there. Jonathan, how you doing today?
Hey, thanks for having me. Really happy to be here.
Absolutely. So you work at BitKey. Why don't you tell the people what BitKey is and its advantages?
Yeah. So BitKey is a Bitcoin wallet. It's a hardware wallet. And at BitKey, we try to make self-custody as safe as possible. And we do that by making wallets that are easy to use and hard to lose. And we have a pretty novel take on how to do that. And if it's okay, I want to spend a minute talking about our seedless approach because it's quite cool. It's something I nerd out about a lot. And I think it catches a lot of folks off guard because they're like, wait, is this even possible? I thought seeds meant self-custody. And so really what we do is we looked at the BitKey, the Bitcoin wallet experience, and we're like, where are the pain points? How are people losing their Bitcoin? What's hard about it? Why is self-custodial solutions scaling more slowly than custodial solutions. That's not great for Bitcoin. And how can we really make this easier and safer? And what we looked at was seed phrases are really hard and kind of dangerous. And what a seed phrase is, to just sort of pause there for a moment, is a lot of people think that seed phrases and your keys are the same thing. And they're very close, but they're not quite. A seed phrase is used to generate a key. And so Bitcoin existed before seed phrases, keys existed before seed phrases. And so seed phrases are really a tool, and they're a cool tool. Like, frankly, like the ability to remember it, remember some words in your head, and be able to have Bitcoin in your brain, like that's pretty amazing. But they also have their challenges. There's this meme that goes around every so often where it's this chain link fence, and there's this like thick metal chain like locking two doors, and one of the chains is replaced with a zip tie, and the chain is labeled like hardware wallet, and the zip tie is labeled seed phrase. And the idea there is like, when you think about your Bitcoin security writ large, you're only secure as your weakest link. And so if you take your seed phrase and you store it improperly, you lose it, you get it phished, it gets hacked, like your Bitcoin is gone. And so we wanted to look at like, okay, if a seed phrase is a tool, what problem is it solving? And can we solve those problems in another secure way? And so seed phrases are really there to solve two problems. One is recovery. If you lose something, you lose your keys, how do you recover it? And the other is to escape the wallet. If you don't want to be in the wallet anymore, the seed phrase gives you the ability to just go somewhere else, take your seed phrase, go somewhere else. And so if you can solve the portability and recovery problem without seed phrases, you have a very good solution. So that's what we set out to do at BitKey. And so what we did is we said, okay, well, let's start with multi-sig. Multi-sig is, the safest, and multi-sig is really nice because if you lose one of your keys, you can use the other two keys to recover. And so that's kind of the foundational layer of BitKey, which is multi-sig. So there's three keys. One's in your hardware wallet, one's in your phone, and one's on our servers. And so the first step is making sure each one of those keys is safe. Hardware keys are very safe. They're offline. They're in this specialized hardware, so you're good there. Phones tend to be sort of the most secure operating system, more than desktops, and they're locked down in ways that make them a little harder to access, both physically because they have biometrics and pins on them, and remotely because the OSs are just a little more secure. And then Block's key that's held on our servers. Block has been holding Bitcoin for years. I mean, they have a Bitcoin treasury. They've been running Cash App, one of the largest exchanges, for a long time. And so they have a lot of experience holding keys safely. And so then we said, okay, well, in your typical traditional multi-sig, where you're protecting seed phrases, what do? You go and hide them in different places. Maybe you hide them at your relative's house or your parents, or like you put them somewhere. Can we do the same thing with cryptography? Like, can you share a secret with someone in your personal network and have that person protect that secret, a cryptographic secret that is useless to them, but extremely useful for you to recover? And so we built this system that we call recovery contacts, where that's exactly what you do. You sort of share these little cryptographic secrets with people in your own personal network. And when it comes time to recover your wallet, you can recover from losing your phone or losing your hardware, or losing both. And so we essentially built this self-custody system that makes it really easy to hold your Bitcoin and really hard to lose it. And that's kind of the sort of core pitch of BitKey.
Very cool. Yeah. And so when you're dealing with these recovery people in your life, right? Do you have just one person who you trust with that shard, or you have multiple people? How does that work?
Yeah. So it's cool. So right now it's configured so that you can have up to 3 of them. And so what you do is you share with them not your keys, because we didn't even want you to be sending your keys out to them. You're actually just sharing basically cryptographic information. So a way to encrypt the key. So you do they send you an encryption key, you use it to encrypt some secrets on your side. And so when it comes time to recover, what you do is you go and grab this encrypted payload that you have. And we can go into the details, but probably not unless you want to get more technical. But you can go and get this payload, but it's not decryptable unless you have the help of someone in your trusted network. And what's really powerful about that is, if an attacker were to ever get that payload, or if your cloud account gets compromised, or if Google or Apple become evil and try to take your cloud, this payload is only decryptable with a secret that someone in your personal network holds on to. And so we can use that to help recover the wallet. And like part of our core philosophy here is when we first started BitKey and we kind of looked at the market, we saw sort of hardware wallets and we said, actually, they've solved in a lot of ways the signing part of self-custody, where how do you generate a key safely? Okay, hardware wallets do that. How do you sign safely with that key? Hardware wallets do that too. Okay, how do you protect that secret? And this is the part that hardware wallets don't even try to do. What they do is they give you the seed phrase, right? They give you the 12 words and they've given it to you. So they actually take their secret and they export it out of the hardware and they say, protect it. You know, if you protect it, your Bitcoin's good. If you don't protect it, you're probably screwed. And so kind of looking at that and saying, okay, well, hardware wallets solve a very specific problem very well, which is the signing problem and the key generation problem. But when it comes to the protecting your keys problem, you know, making sure you can withstand a fire, a robbery, you know, someone trusted in your life betraying you, inheritance, you know, like you just take all the things life throws at you and you say, okay, well, how do I protect my Bitcoin from those? Hardware wallets are like, here's the seed phrase, figure it out. And so what we wanted to do is say, okay, that's the problem we want to solve. That's the core problem of self-custody, is like making sure you always have access to your keys and nobody else has access to your keys. And so when we built BitKey, we didn't just want to build a hardware wallet. We have a hardware wallet, but we also wanted to build all of these tools on top of it that make keeping your keys safe very easy and very secure.
And have you been at BitKey from the beginning of the ideation phase of all this?
Not the very, very beginning. So I joined about a year and a half before launch. And so when I joined, there was already a team in place. There were some of the core principles around like, first principles thinking, like, how do we make self-custody safe, not just signing safe? And so it was a great time to join because the team already had a ton of momentum and a very clear vision. And bringing it to market has many twists and turns. That was fun to be a part of.
Very cool. Nice. Well, yes, you are our resident security expert and the guy with the cryptographic knowledge. And so we are going to jump into the headlines today. As we do every Monday morning, 11 a.m. Eastern, we go over Bitcoin News Weekly. Our newsletter comes out Monday morning, straight to your inbox, and we go over all the biggest headlines in Bitcoin, so you're all caught up and don't need to scroll X with your whole entire life like I do. So, yes, what is the topic of today? The flight to hard money has begun, and Bitcoin is the end game. Gold becomes the first $30 trillion asset, but only Bitcoin is truly finite. So, as we said in the intro, gold is stealing all the headlines. It is adding the market cap of Bitcoin almost every single week here. It's absolutely insane the tear this thing has gone on, and it goes to show you that there's major things moving behind the scenes. But before we talk about geopolitical intrigue and gold and hard assets, first we got to jump in straight into our adoption section. And this is something that's actually tied to your company somewhat here, Blocks, of course. So just last week, they announced that they were rolling out Bitcoin adoption to all the Square merchants, right? Square merchants, people who use the Square point of sales terminal, are able to accept Bitcoin now. And now it's finally out there in the wild. So just this last week, we saw the first example of it right here. Super simple. Everybody has seen these things, these Square point of sales terminals. And of course, you usually pay with your credit card with this thing. Well, now, finally, after years of development, you can pay in Bitcoin. And it's really this simple. So they just plug it in, how much it costs, turn it around, scan it, and hit send, and boom, right over the Lightning Network. Is fast, if not faster, than a credit card. And you just paid in Bitcoin. This has the opportunity to change the game when it comes to Bitcoin as a medium of exchange. Just this morning, I went out to 2 coffee places. There was this new place, a coffee van right outside of my building. And I went there first and I saw the little Square thing. So I thought, okay, so I go up and I bought Bitcoin, I bought a coffee from him and said, hey, you can accept Bitcoin. And he goes, oh yeah. I said, so you're going to do it? He goes, yeah, I'll do it tonight. I'll set it up. Come back tomorrow. So that's how it's got to be done. We got to go and orange pill all the merchants all around us who use Square. So as this is part of your parent company who set this all up, what have you heard about it? What's been been the whole entire process of getting this going?
Yeah, it's cool. I mean, so Block works on so much Bitcoin stuff. Like they're really kind of attacking it from every angle. You know, the custody side with BitKey, where I work, the mining side with Proto, and the payment side now with Square. And like what I think is really cool is payments kind of has this cold start problem where like you need people able to buy and willing to buy with it, and you need merchants willing to accept it. And like, how do you kind of get that flywheel turning? And it's cool because Block has both Cash App, which makes it really easy to pay in Bitcoin over Lightning, and now Square to receive Bitcoin. And so there's like a whole suite of Bitcoin features in Square now. There's payments, which is like just being able to do a point of sale, and there's like no processing fees for a year. And like, so now anybody with the Square terminal, or not now, but I think it's November 10th or something, where it rolls out to every seller, will have the ability to accept Bitcoin, which is amazing. You know, I actually have in-laws visiting me right now, and my mother-in-law does just makes jewelry for like farmers market. She's retired and she uses Square, and so she's going to be able to accept Bitcoin. And it's like that seems like the future in a way. It's like, you know, I don't know how she gets to accepting Bitcoin any other way. So I was, you know, talking to her about it, and she was like, "Oh yeah, that sounds great. No processing fees." But what else you can do on these Square terminals is you can convert your daily sales into Bitcoin. Regardless of what the customer pays in. And so it gives, you know, small mom and pop shops the ability to start stacking sats kind of organically, which is cool. And then, you know, there's built-in wallet functionality, so they can buy, sell, hold, withdrawal, you know, do all of that stuff. And so it's cool to see so much of the like tooling come together, because like once that flywheel gets going, I think like it's just gonna grow.
Absolutely. And it does, you're right, it has this cold start program, right? Or problem where you have Bitcoin, but you don't really want to part with it. And so it's sort of hard to incentivize Bitcoiners to pay in Bitcoin, but it's necessary for Bitcoin adoption to spread. So what is the best way to really get this moving is to incentivize the merchants to say Bitcoin is preferred here, right? And I think that Square is doing a great job with that, of course, with 0% fees for the first year. When it comes to a small mom and pop business, that 2 to 3% that Visa and MasterCard take, it really changes things a lot. And you have to take a lot into consideration when running your business and doing the books as to how much that is going to affect your profit and loss. So if you can take payments for 0% fees, get that full amount straight into your business, it helps a lot. And I'm so excited to see how this affects Bitcoin adoption here in America, right? Where you see medium of exchange Bitcoin being used in places like Latin America or Africa a lot. But in America, people just like to really hold on to it, to save it as a store of value. But with these Square, it's changing the game, man. Super excited. And
I mean, it's awesome to see just like the tooling come together. Because like I imagine trying to do this like a year ago, like, you know, live on a Bitcoin standard. It's like, okay, well, what if I wanted to get some of my paycheck in Bitcoin? And then what if I wanted to, you know, buy things in Bitcoin? And now to have, you know, there's Cash App, you can take some of your direct deposit, put it into Bitcoin, use your Lightning wallet, pay at a Square terminal. You know, they can then store it in Bitcoin. You've got self-custody solutions with BitKey. It's like, to do that sort of living on a Bitcoin standard, like the tools are coming together where it's easy. And like, I think that's really like the capability has been there for a long time, but until it's like easy and convenient, like that's the real kicker. And it's like, it's just so cool to see how fast the industry is moving.
Agreed. Yeah. I mean, Bitcoin, it's had sort of a UX problem, right? I mean, for mass adoption, it needs to be simple, and this is really bringing it home. I mean, Cash App, you've been able to buy Bitcoin on it since 2018, and now this is 7 years later. You can actually go use that Bitcoin that you buy on Cash App and go spend it on a Square terminal. Super cool, and it closes the loop. And Jack has been pestered with the question of when Bitcoin for so long with these Square terminals, and now finally comes home. Super cool. Nice. And so let us hop into our next story here. That would be Tether donating $250,000 to OpenSats to fund free and open source Bitcoin development, including protocol research, privacy tools, and education supporting broader freedom technologies. So I was just wondering, do you have any experience with OpenSats? And
not really. I mean, I'm sort of aware of like some of the projects that are going on, and like it's always great to see sort of these like these projects that are like really transformative if they were to succeed, kind of. And not that they're all moonshot projects, but there's always like this moonshot vibe to me of like, what if we did this thing that was really cool, and like I think there's a business here, but it's so cool, and like I love to see things like that get funded, because it's like those are the things that are like really transformative when they land.
Do you think that funding is the biggest bottleneck when it comes to Bitcoin development at this time?
Oh, I don't know. I think it has been historically.
Yeah.
I think it also has been changing. Like I think there's gone through periods where like the funding is like flowing, and times where it's like really tight. I don't know if it's the biggest bottleneck. I think that like there's a lot of cool projects out there and a lot of ways to kind of get started. But it's also scary and hard to go out and like try to do something new without funding, and go and get need to find some sort of investor or funding or grant in order to like keep the lights on. And so it's I think it's just great that there's more and more of these opportunities popping up for folks.
Yeah, well, that brings us to our next story. And one branch of the Bitcoin dev tree that has really just gone out there and made the most of it is the eCash segment, right? And so now we see Signal, the world's premier private messaging app, is integrating Bitcoin micropayments via the Cashew protocol, enabling users to send and receive private, censorship-resistant payments within the world's most trusted encrypted messaging app. So, I mean, Signal, it's used by privacy advocates around the world. I have it. I use Telegram more, to be completely honest, but Signal is extremely popular within the Bitcoin community because it is private, encrypted, and they can't see what you're sending. And now we have private money to be sent over Signal in the form of eCash. This is super cool. Have you messed around with eCash, and do you use Signal?
I definitely use Signal. I have for quite a while. I have not used this yet. I have some experience with eCash, but not a ton. I think it's a super cool technology. Like this, I've always been a little bit skeptical of stable coins, because like even though like because there's this centralized issuer, they can they kind of have sort of God mode controls over the coins. They can burn them, they can seize them, they can freeze them, they can do all that stuff. I think Cashew and eCash get around that, where once you kind of get into that ecosystem, like everything is private, and there's no like the mint doesn't have sort of godlike powers within once the tokens are issued, and I think that's super powerful. There's a lot of details here on the mints. The mints themselves are a bit of a centralized, well, I don't want to call it centralized, because you can do like federated mints and things like that, but the details of how the mint is run is super important. And so I think like seeing innovation in this space, it feels like a solvable problem. And like once it's nailed, we'll have, really powerful payment tools.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, what's really cool is that, I mean, this eCash is a bearer token, right? I mean, when you're actually sending it to somebody else, and if that's the thing, if they lose that phone or whatever, then that is gone, right? There's no seed phrase or anything else you can use to plug into a wallet to get that eCash back. So yeah, and it's super private, right? I mean, no one can tell who sent what and who has what. So very cool development over here. The tech keeps moving forward, and it feels like a big week for Bitcoin and development and adoption, and the way that it is being spread out into the world in a million different ways. Super cool.
I remember reading like years ago where it's like first is store of value, and then second is medium of exchange. And like this week, I mean, just even to this newsletter, it's like medium of exchange story, medium of exchange story, medium of exchange story. It's like it's happening. It's happening. Yeah. And like that's really exciting.
We're getting there. And yes, I mean, we also had some big stories this week when it came to the legal section. Earlier in this week, there was this huge bust. The U.S. Treasury seized 127,000 plus Bitcoin worth $14 billion from a Chinese pig butchering scam, bringing its total Bitcoin holdings to 324,000 BTC. And this was the largest confiscation in history. So there's so many different aspects of the story that we can touch upon. So the first one is the fact that it was a pig butchering scam. And so what does that mean? So it's a Chinese term, and what it means is that they fatten up their victims. So you will meet somebody online and you will begin talking with them, and they somewhat of a romantic interest, and they will convince you to invest in some scheme, some exchange, whatnot. You put your money on there, and then boom, it vanishes, and the person vanishes that you were supposedly in love with, and they were going to take you to the financial promised land. So there was this operation going on over in Cambodia, ran by this individual, Chen Zhe, from China, born in 1987. And he had this company called the Prince Group. And this is like a true evil operation out of like a Bond movie, right? I mean, they had compounds where these people were forced to stay there and run these scams. Like they were doing this pig butchering from these locked inside these compounds, really crazy stuff. This company is making billions of dollars. They ran one of the world's largest Bitcoin mining pools back in 2020 called Lubian. And they had 6% of all the hash rate in the world at the time. But then one day they got hacked. Their Bitcoin went missing, and they shut down the Bitcoin mining pool. So what happened next? It's this 5 years later, and there was this global effort, this coordination between the US and the UK. They've been going for 18 months, following their digital footprint. And so now there's sanctions on this guy and his company, Prince Group Holdings. But somehow the US government was able to get his Bitcoin. What? So we covered this story this weekend, and what it comes down to, it seems as if they weren't hacked in the traditional sense. Instead, investigators found that a flaw in Lubian's cryptographic key generation process that made its Bitcoin wallets dangerously predictable. So it seems as if, does this paragraph make sense to you? The crucial new trick is that the wallet creator of the P2WPKH nested in P2SH wallets generated more than one private key from a Messerine Twister pseudonymous random number generator output stream before reseeding the pseudo-anonymous random number generator. So yes, they generated weak keys. And it seems as if the US government was able to brute force them and gain access to this Bitcoin. This is an absolutely insane story.
This is wild. The first question I had as soon as I saw the initial headline was like, how did they get the keys? Like, was it
Right.
was it like some spy movie, like infiltration? Was someone really careless? But like to think that they sort of cracked some like cryptography error is so cool. But also like kind of scary because you got to make sure that cryptography is right.
Yeah.
The whole random numbers turn out to be super important, and so you mess that up, and it's game over.
And so 220,000 Bitcoin addresses were affected by the same flaw. When BitKey generates the private key, at what point does that exactly happen, and how do you ensure that it is random?
Yeah. So the short answer is we have some great cryptographers, and I don't want to like pretend to understand like how that process works, because I worry I'll get it wrong. And but the core idea though is that when you generate keys, you will have to go through the sort of these key generation ceremonies exactly right and make sure that all of the math checks out. And like you're protected by the math if you use the math right. And if you don't, like in this case, it leaves you open to error, or open to being attacked in sort of brute force ways. But there's a lot of cool stuff happening in this field as well. I don't know if you've heard about Frost, which is like a different key generation technique. Like it's got some cool properties. A lot of people are excited about it for different reasons. And one of the things that stuck with me when we were looking into it was in this key generation process, all of the different signers that are parts of the quorum of keys each contribute their own entropy, which is cool because that means that the resulting keys are as secure as the most secure participant. So if you have like 3 people participating in this process and 2 of them are like behaving poorly and like generating bad entropy, but just one of them is playing by the rules, the entropy that's contributed by that source makes all of the keys safer. And so I think we're like, there's innovation happening at kind of like every layer of the Bitcoin stack right now, like at the deep cryptographic layers, at the protocol layer, at the application layer, at like, and so I think there's a big opportunity to like really keep moving security forward in a way that like users don't need to understand what's going on. Like you don't need to be able to go deep, and like there are these assurances and guarantees that you can get from sort of different players or different participants in each of the layers of the Bitcoin stack.
And so you have cryptographers on your team, yes?
Oh yeah. There's cryptographers, there's applied cryptographers, there's like, there's like I said, Block is a big company. We do a lot of Bitcoin stuff, from mining to custody to payments to like these are essentially mathematicians who write code and make sure that this stuff is done in a way that's provably secure. Because like once you're in the world of math, things become provable, and so you can make things provably secure. You just have to do it right.
Yeah. No, it's crazy stuff. It's amazing that it all just works, right? Math is so amazing, and so
it really is.
Speaking of somebody who didn't get their math right, Sam Bankman-Fried. So
I saw this. This was crazy.
So weird, right? So this large right-wing influencer on X, Amuse, he puts out this glowing article absolving him of blame, saying that he wasn't really insolvent, and that this was really all coming from the fact that he started to donate to Republicans in 2022, and Biden's DOJ started to target him because of it. So it's a weird circumstance of events where we have this article come out. Like, that's not SBF, dude. Like,
I saw that. It's like it's almost a little bit of like, I don't know, maybe a little bit of Tom Brady and SBF mixed together.
Yeah, Zac Efron. I don't know.
Something's better.
Something's going on there. It's not him. But yes, I mean, Sam Bankman-Fried's story did not end in the courtroom where he was sentenced to prison. It continued in the spreadsheets, balance sheets, and forgotten ledgers that tell a radically different story. Come on, man. And now he's getting messages leaked out of prison on his Getter account. His friend, he's getting these messages to his friend, and his friend is posting them on his behalf. But he says that in 2020, I was center left. By 2022, having seen Gensler and Biden's DOJ on crypto, I was a centrist and privately donated tens of millions to Republicans. Weeks later, Biden's anti-crypto SEC went after me, and they had me arrested weeks before the crypto bill I was working on was set for a vote. And the night before, I was set to testify before Congress. So crazy stuff. I don't know if we're trying to, what's going on here. A bunch of people have been pardoned, right? We saw Ross get out of jail and have his be completely pardoned by Trump. Trump also just let out George Santos, a Republican congressman who's in jail for lying. And now it seems as if there might be some effort to get SBF out of jail.
Oh man. So for this one, the thing that kind of stuck with me was like, even in the most generous reading of that article, like let's just like take that article side. They were fully solvent the whole time. It was the motivation for going after him was politically based. Okay, let's grant those 2 points, which I don't agree with, but let's just grant those 2 points. He still did all the fraud stuff. Like the whole basis of the fraud was he ran an exchange and customers put money into that exchange to trade. And, it's just like going to a casino. You go, you give them, $1,000, they give you some chips, you play with the chips. And then when you want to leave, you give them the chips back and take your money out. And so the expectation is that money that you gave them in the beginning is like sitting in the back in a vault, and like you can just exchange your chips. And like the industry term is demand deposits. Like you can demand it back whenever you want. You give the chips, you get your money back. Sam was sitting on, I forget what it was, 13 billion, 12 billion, something around there, of these demand deposits of people who had put real money in and were trading on the exchange, and was like, I wonder if I can generate income, profits off that money that's sitting there. So then he took it and he shoveled it into another corporation, Alameda, and was like, go use this capital to go make money. And then Alameda did a whole bunch of shady stuff, from like market making on FTX to investing. Here's the wild thing. So at this time, I was working at a DeFi startup. My path into Bitcoin went through dirty DeFi for a few years, which was very formative for me. Now Bitcoin only, but back then, our lead investor was Alameda. And so what had happened was we were building like derivative trading products on top of FTX. And so a lot of synergy there. Alameda invested in us. And so like literally that cash went from like customer demand deposits into FTX, was commingled with Alameda's balance sheet. And then Alameda was then investing in startups, which is the craziest thing ever, because like if you have a demand deposit and you need to pay it back whenever the customer asks, doing venture capital where the payout is like 3, 5, 10 years in the future, like the company that I was at the time wasn't profitable. They weren't getting their money back from us. Like we didn't have it. We were just had a burn rate and trying to figure out product market fit. And so like, there were essentially customer stolen funds in the treasury of this startup. And so it's like that whole fraud exists. And like, it's very well documented. They proved it in court. It was very compelling. And so even if FTX was solvent, which I've seen those reports too, and they're kind of compelling, that like, hey, if he didn't get caught, I mean, this is kind of stupid to say, if he didn't get caught, they wouldn't got away with it. But like if they didn't get caught at the moment they did, there was potentially an opportunity to like keep this fraud going and keep paying people out and like kind of like keep sweeping it under the rug. And like, and they were generating fake balance sheets to hide this all. And so like, so I guess back to the original point, like even if you grant this article everything it's saying, like it doesn't negate the stuff that also happened.
Yeah.
And so I was just like, what's the point here? Like what are we trying to do?
Exactly. And you bring up some great points. I mean, it really comes down to human greed, right? Like the fact that they had one of the world's or one of the leading exchanges in America, right? People liked FTX. Like degens love to trade on FTX. They had the title of the Miami arena, right? I mean, they had commercials with Tom Brady. Like they were the leading name of like crypto in America at the time, 5 years ago. And they also had investments in like Anthropic, right? They were like a seed investor in Anthropic.
Yeah.
Like they could have gotten away with it, if it wasn't for CZ. And that's another thing. Like maybe, I mean, there definitely was some palace intrigue between CZ and SBF and their history together, and who was going to be the lead exchange of the world. But yeah, Sam Bankman-Fried should not be allowed to get away with this. And this whole entire public relations campaign going on right now is pretty suspicious.
Yeah, I agree. I had forgotten the whole CZ part of that story, the twist of story. Like, I mean, it was his tweeting and his like, that. What a wild, that was such a crazy story.
And then CZ went to jail, and now he's out, and now he's back. He said, I'm going to devote my life to education. And now he's like right back in the middle of all this stuff, like this huge blow up that happened just like 2 weeks ago, right? I mean,
and then Sam Bankman-Fried's like C staff, like all flipping against him and testifying in court. And like, that was really tough.
Wild. Well, if you want to buy your Bitcoin from a place that absolutely has it and will not commingle your funds and go invest it in crazy things and try to make a buck off of it, you got to use our friends over at Rhino. Rhino is the lead sponsor of this show, and we are so grateful for them. Why? Because Rhino is the all-in-one Bitcoin super app built by Bitcoiners for Bitcoiners. Of course, you can buy or sell your Bitcoin instantly, no problems there, and then you can take your sats, do what you like with them, send them instantly on the Lightning Network anywhere in the world. You can withdraw straight to cold storage and even turn your sats into gift cards. Or if you use a multi-sig with Casa, you can use the Rhino wallet as one of your keys for that multi-sig wallet. And Rhino is just warming up. Soon you'll be able to pay bills, borrow against your Bitcoin, and stack for retirement all within one app. So go download Rhino today. Go to rhinobitcoin.com. Super simple. It's on iOS, it's on Android, wherever you want. Download Rhino onto your phone, or just tap the link down in the description here. Use the code Bitcoin News and Rhino will drop you $10 in free Bitcoin right into your account today. Secure your stack on a daily basis. Use DCA. You can set limit orders so that if Bitcoin drops, like we saw a couple of weeks ago, goes down real quick, you're able to automatically scoop up that Bitcoin and get it right into your Rhino wallet. So go check them out. Use the code Bitcoin News, $10 of Bitcoin right into your wallet. Thank you, Rhino. Appreciate you. And so now, Jonathan, let us talk about the title of today's show, and that is all about gold. Gold has officially become the first asset in history to reach a $30 trillion market cap, signaling a global rush into hard assets as monetary uncertainty deepens. So if we go over to the live top assets by market cap chart, we see gold here at $30.186 trillion, with gold at 4,340. People thought maybe last Friday was a top, or at least a breather for gold. Well, it doesn't seem as if that is so. It crashed down to 4,200, and now it's up $150. And what people need to realize is that when gold goes up $150, that's adding tens of billions of dollars to its market cap, right? And then we've got Bitcoin here, number 8, still within the top 10, with just as big as that, all these other great assets, but we're just 2.2, right? I mean, we got a 14, 13x to get to gold up here. Absolutely wild. And while the whole entire world is talking about this debasement trade, gold has definitely taken the lead as of the last couple of weeks, primarily 2 months. It's really since mid-August that gold has been on this just parabolic tear. I mean, I guess it's worth bringing up the chart here. But yeah, I mean, it was chilling at 3,300 from March up until August, and then it's just gone straight up. So really, really crazy price action in the world's oldest asset, one could say. Have you gotten has anybody talked about gold? Have you heard gold be mentioned in your real life, or is this still just maybe a sovereign bid right now going on?
I have not, like in real life, I have not had like anyone talk to me about gold or it's so funny how different like Twitter and real life is. But I do love seeing that like the basic hard money thesis play out. It's like, are we mainstream now? Like, and I always remember, I think it was Larry Lepard I was talking about, like, hey, the gold bugs are like their OG hard money guys. And then like Bitcoin came in and like, really indoctrinated a lot of people about hard money. And it's like, is hard money mainstream now? Like, is there now the 2-step process of convincing someone to Bitcoin is like, first hard money, second Bitcoin's the best. And now with gold taking off, it's like, all right, well, world agrees, like hard money is the general thesis now. And so now it's just a matter of realizing that the properties that make gold so attractive are also there, and in many cases is better in Bitcoin. And so it's like such a great signal.
Agreed. I mean, it's crazy. Just I'll bring up this video here. This is Australia, and people are literally lining up. They're lining up to go buy gold. They're spending hours in these lines to go into the bullion dealers and buy gold. It's crazy. But you're right. This is the global debasement trade, right? People are they're waking up to the fact that fiat is being debased. They are stealing your purchasing power by creating more and more fiat. Every single country in the world is doing this. So you need to protect yourself. And gold is tried and true. It's thousands of years old, of course. But Bitcoin, who's just 16 years old now, has really punched way above his weight class and is now within the same headlines as gold as the major benefits of this debasement trade.
Yeah, I have one of my good friends is a financial advisor, and he's a Bitcoiner and has been for a long time, but he's not allowed to pitch Bitcoin at his firm. And so he's he has always been like, it's been a really interesting perspective to kind of see like the traditional finance world that he lives in, but also knowing his personal beliefs, because we talk all the time. But we were just talking the other day, and they're now recommending hard assets in every portfolio. And so while they still haven't, it's run by a bunch of old guys who don't quite get Bitcoin or whatever, but, to see the core thesis of like, they're not recommending, 60/40 anymore. They're recommending a hard asset thesis. And so I think it's just, a matter of time before Bitcoin enters that consciousness as well. But to see that thesis coming together, like that's not something I ever heard anyone talk about until recently, at least not in the mainstream world, of like debasement, inflation, hard assets, like all of what used to feel like fringe Twitter ranting is now like showing up on CNN and Fox. Like, like it's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, I got Austrian school pilled back in 2009, right? During the financial crisis.
Yeah.
Ron Paul was super popular. Peter Schiff, I actually really looked up to Peter Schiff at the time,
Right.
because Bitcoin wasn't a thing yet. And gold seemed like the logical answer to the problems that were facing us at the time. So I thought that, we might experience hyperinflation by 2012, right? And that gold was going to take off. Well, that is not what played out. They were able to push all the inflation into assets and stocks market and just went straight up throughout the 2010s. While gold really languished, right? It was down to it was like $1,000 for an ounce in 2015. But no, the money printing has not stopped. And of course, COVID exacerbated it. And we printed trillions of dollars. And so now both gold and Bitcoin are near all-time highs, making all-time highs. And it's super interesting. Check out this video. This is from this last week. Jerome Powell was actually being asked about inflation and if gold is a signal.
So one of your predecessors, Alan Greenspan, used to view the price of gold as an indicator of inflation risk. So in that context, how do you view the rally that we've seen in gold? And if you want to throw in Bitcoin, you can comment on that too.
I'm not going to comment on any particular asset price, including that one. And I think we think of inflation as driven by fundamental supply and demand factors, and it's not something we look at actively.
Come on, dude.
Right.
Come on. You could get away with the whole inflation being caused by supply and demand during the supply chain shocks of 2020 and 2021, but you printed trillions of dollars. And if you don't look at gold as a thermometer or the price of Bitcoin as a thermometer of how you are doing your job as the head of the world's largest central bank, you're looking at the wrong things. I think obviously he looks at these two assets as a gauge of how he is doing, just as his predecessor Alan Greenspan did. And I think he knows that they printed a lot of money and it needs to go somewhere. So way to avoid the question there, Jerome.
Yeah, I feel like the dodge is telling in and of itself. Like there's I don't know, there's a certain elephant in the room that's like everybody knows, and it's it's no longer the like, what's this weird fringe question? Like what agenda are you trying to push? Now it's like, well, that's a really fair question and you seem scared of it. And I think that's a big signal in and of itself.
Absolutely. And going along with what you said with your friend, the financial advisor, if we look at this next thing in the market section, 279 institutions reported $870 million in Bitcoin ETF holdings in Q3, up 117 million from Q2, as wealth managers and advisors increasingly add Bitcoin to their client portfolios. So, I mean, you look at the names on this chart, I mean, they're all wealth management and advisors, right? And these guys wouldn't have touched Bitcoin a couple of years ago, but now we've got the ETF. They can easily add it to their portfolios and they're buying. They're in. And so Bitcoin is no longer a dirty word. And now that it's deemed acceptable, it's going to be put in more clients' portfolios of these wealth managers and advisors. And the numbers.
Do you remember like right before the ETFs were launching, there was like everybody was speculating on like, okay, how much inflows will they get year one? And like some of the crazy ones were like, do you think they'll hit like 10 billion in the first year? And it'd be like, there's no way. And like to now see what actually happened is just like, you almost forget how incredible and unrealistic a number half that size sounded, just 2 years ago.
Yeah. No, it's the fastest ETF to ever hit $100 billion of assets under management, right? Within 2 years. It took the other ETFs, whoever got that far, very few get to $100 billion. It took them 20 years since like the beginning of ETFs, like it's absolutely insane to see the demand for these products, because this is the narrative. People understand that they are being debased and they need to protect themselves, and that Bitcoin is the fastest horse. Crazy stuff. Then also, I think I needed to mention this. So another big narrative of the last year, of course, was these Bitcoin treasury companies. And many people thought, oh, maybe I've missed the boat with Bitcoin. I need a bet on a treasury company. But now we're seeing 18 of the top 105 Bitcoin treasury companies have an MNAV of less than 1. That means that they're trading for less than the value of their Bitcoin holdings. So we can leave it at that, but I think it just goes to show you. What do you have to say?
Okay, so this one has always confused me a little bit. I think there's 2 categories of treasury companies, and I feel like we almost need different words to describe them. So like, let's say you're, like we're talking about these Square terminals, you can take some of your sales and convert them into Bitcoin and just hold Bitcoin. So are you a Bitcoin treasury company at that point? And so I feel like, under some definitions, you are. I think actually under the most common definition, you are. Like if you're holding Bitcoin on your balance sheet. And I think there's a very different thing going on when you're saying, I have some reserve capital, I want to hold it in Bitcoin because that's the best thing to hold it in. And that's kind of like one category. And then there's the other category that are like the strategies of the world, which is like, my business is to hold Bitcoin, create Bitcoin derivatives, provide liquidity for those Bitcoin derivatives, and then use proceeds from those Bitcoin derivatives to drive more Bitcoin purchases and try to get this flywheel going. And so one, you're like treating Bitcoin as just like a reserve asset because you want to capitalize your company. And the other, like you've got like a Bitcoin financial instrument company that's trying to generate like that's like selling Bitcoin based financial products. And we kind of call them both Bitcoin treasury companies. And I can totally see hey, I just hold some reserves as Bitcoin as like, well, yeah, maybe depending on the company. And then like, what is the MNAV supposed to be of a company that's just holding, reserves? And there might be all this risk, all these other external risks that are pushing that down. And then you've got the companies that are like really trying to create this Bitcoin treasury as a product almost. And I think they're very different. And I think in the Bitcoin treasury as a product world, that's where, I don't know if it's winner take all, but I think there's a very strong, like the more liquidity you have, the more liquidity you get, the more liquidity, like there's this positive reinforcement loop of like, everybody wants to be trading the most liquid assets. And so like, it's going to be hard to beat strategy at their own game. And like, maybe you can find like niche market, or not niche markets, but maybe like in different jurisdictions and different markets. And like, maybe there's room for lots of players with kind of like different types of constraints. But anyway, I guess the point being is like celebrating any company who's holding Bitcoin as their reserve asset because they believe in the Bitcoin thesis, I think is good. And I wouldn't worry too much about the MNAV on those and whether or not like that says something about the broader Bitcoin thesis overall. And that really kind of pulling out these like financialized Bitcoin treasury companies is something different and unique.
100%. I do think that Square is going to help enable the blossoming of thousands of legitimate Bitcoin treasury companies who are able to turn a profit and then to turn that into Bitcoin and save it on the balance sheet in order to protect themselves from fiat debasement. But yes, I think it is going to be much tougher for companies who are just financial wizards trying to create a large MNAV, get a large premium, and then turn that into more Bitcoin. Because we just had this chart come out this weekend with Bitcoin treasury companies. Retail investors have lost an estimated $17 billion on these companies. And yeah, I mean, this just shows you Metaplanet versus Bitcoin. And Yeah, I mean, earlier this year, it was a craze. It was a mania. And it's so funny when you're in the middle of these things, it feels like, oh, this is a new paradigm. This is never gonna end. These premiums are just gonna keep getting fatter, and that these companies are gonna take over the world. Well, that changed and a lot of people got burned. And so I think it's very important, especially for new people who come into the space. Bitcoin in cold storage is by far the safest asset. It is the thing that you can truly own, even when it comes to stocks. I mean, are they truly yours is the question. With Bitcoin, the answer is yes. And that's what you guys help do at BitKey, right? I mean, you guys help people take control of their Bitcoin. And it's a very important job.
Yeah, and for me personally, this is the first I guess full cycle for me being totally in self-custody. And I remember the fear of the last one of is my exchange solvent? If I try to withdraw, will it come out? Is it, do they really have what they're saying? And the vibe of the market cycle when you're sitting in self-custody is so much more chill. It's like you're not worried about counterparty risk. If you believe in the Bitcoin long-term thesis and you're DCAing, price doesn't even matter to you, because if it goes up, you're happy because it went up, and if it goes down, it's on sale and you're getting more Bitcoin. And so you're happy if it goes up, you're happy if it goes down. The longer it's more volatile, the longer it'll take institutions to adopt it, the more time I have to stack. And so there's just such a different vibe to Bitcoin once you get on the DCA into self-custody. It's just so chill. It's like watching a movie. You're not actually scared yourself. And so recommend it for everyone. DCA into self-custody. That's the dream.
Absolutely. And in events like on October 10th, when Bitcoin crashed from 120 down to 102, I mean, you're completely fine. And as you said, it just means it's an opportunity to stack more sats, right? A cheap sats.
Your next DCA is going to be a fat one.
Yes. Yeah. And I mean, we'd be lucky to have the opportunity, right, to stack at 100K again. But it all comes with education, right? The more education you have, the stronger your conviction and the less worry you have. The more you think that this is just some magical internet money that you might turn a quick profit on, the more fear you're going to have, and the less conviction, and the more trouble you're going to have just in your mind.
I know it's always hard. I don't know if you have this experience, but you orange pill your friends, and then they take the orange pill, but then they also want to trade everything else. And you're just no, don't. Just I know it's boring. Just buy Bitcoin and sit on it. Just put in something to sit. And they're like, no. Have you heard about this mining company that does this thing? Or have you heard about this treasury company? I think they're gonna. I'm like, please stop. And but it happens every time. Every time you orange pill someone, I feel this sense of guilt too, of oh no, you're gonna have to go through that. You're gonna have to go through the pain. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I mean, that's the price of admission, right? People usually have to go through the whole shitcoins and DeFi and stocks and everything to get to Bitcoin only at the end of the day. And it leaves them a lot more peaceful when they do. Well, yeah, Jonathan, I think that's a great place to end the show here. It's been a pleasure speaking with you about all these different topics. If people want to find out more about you and BitKey self-custody, where should they go? What should they do?
BitKey.world is our site to learn more about BitKey. We've got a ton of great content there, from learning hubs that are very accessible to technical documentation if you want to see the source code. BitKey Official is our X handle. Check that out. You can find me from there. I'm often posting or getting reposted by them for things I write. Yeah, keep stacking sats. It was great being on the show. It's fun hanging out and talking about Bitcoin, one of my favorite things to do. So thank you for having me.
Cheers, man. Absolutely. Time flew by, and really appreciate your expertise when it comes to cryptography and self-custody. And yeah, if you want to get a BitKey, head over to bitkey.world and go pick one up. It's a great way to get your friends and family who are also new to Bitcoin into self-custody. It simplifies the whole process and really makes it easy to get over the fear of getting your Bitcoin off exchange, because everybody should be doing that. And this is a great way to do it. All right, Jonathan, thank you so much. Until next time, everybody, this has been Bitcoin News Weekly. We are here live every Monday, 11 a.m. You get the email in your inbox at 7 a.m. Eastern. Then we hop on live 4 hours later. new interesting people like Jonathan here every single week. So be sure, mark it on your calendar. Join us next week, 11 a.m., and we'll see you then. Thank you so much, everybody. Until next time.